Welcome back to the shop, friends. If you've been around woodworking for a while, there's a good chance you've ran across this tool. This is the WEN Oscillating Spindle Sander. The main reasons you probably ran across this tool is number one, it's got excellent online reviews, and number two, it's the cheapest oscillating spindle sander on Amazon. So in today's video, let's test out this tool and see if it's as good as those online reviews suggest. If you're new here, my name is Jim and I'm the creator of the Lasting Build channel. I'm a hobby woodworker and carpenter. I make weekly videos intended to help you improve your skills and inspire that next project. Now you should know that I bought this tool with my own money and this is not a sponsored video. So I bought the tool on June the 10th, 2020. I paid $127.88 on Amazon with free shipping. So this is the WEN Oscillating Spindle Sander model 6510T. The motor is 120 volts, 60 hertz, and 3.5 amps. The spindle speed is 2000 RPM, and the spindle oscillation is 58 oscillations per minute. The machine comes with a sanding sleeve size of a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch. So now that we have this unboxed, let's take a look at some of the features of the tool. The height of the cast iron table off of your workbench is approximately 13 inches. The footprint of the tool sitting on your workbench is approximately 14 inches wide and 16 inches deep. The tool does come with a really nice cast iron table and a hard plastic base. Now these are known as the sanding throat plates, and it comes with 6 of them. And one of the things I really like is that these little slots here fit those really nice and tightly. That should prevent them from sliding around or vibrating when you're using the tool. So each one of the sanding throat plates have some perforations in it to assist in the dust collection portion. The only one that doesn't is the throat plate that fits the 3-inch sanding drum. Another feature that I really like is these spindles are made to fit each one of the sanding drums. So each drum that the tool comes with has its own spot, and it fits those pretty nicely, and it should keep those from getting lost. The tool also comes with a little wrench, and it's made to fit the nut that holds the sanding drums on the tool, and it has its own little slot to store it. I like that each corner of the tool has a pre-drilled hole for attaching it to your workbench. On the front of the tool, there's sort of a typical plastic on and off switch, and then there's a small reset button below that. The dust port of the tool is certainly a atypical size. It measures 1.5 inches in diameter. It doesn't fit my dust collection system very well. However, I do have a solution for that, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. One nice thing about the tool is there's no assembly required. Only thing you really have to do is to put your sanding drums on the tool. Let me show you how to do that now. So assembly of the tool is quite easy. If you're using the 1/2 inch sanding paper, you don't need a drum. In other words, there's no rubber inside of it. You just slide it right over the spindle. Then you can add the included washer that fits that sanding paper perfectly, and then you just add the locking nut. Once you have your sandpaper locked down to the spindle, then you can add your sanding throat plate. Now, with the exception of adding the 1/2 inch sandpaper to the spindle, you need to add this lower washer to over the spindle. And what that does is it prevents the sandpaper from sliding off of your spindle. So there is a corresponding washer for each one of the sanding drums. That way the washer is not hanging over the edge of the sandpaper. Now, as I said before, there's also a corresponding throat plate as well for each one of the sanding drums. It would be nice if they had put a finger hole for these throat plates. They're a little bit hard to get out. You have to basically stick a knife in there and sort of pry it up. It's not that big of a deal, but just a single finger hole would be kind of nice to help get those out. So now that you know how to assemble the tool, let me get the 3-inch sanding drum on the machine, and then we will demonstrate how it works. So before we try it out, let me show you how I'm going to hook my dust collection to it. Now, my dust collection in my shop either has 4-inch hoses or 2.5-inch hoses. As we said before, that the diameter hole for the dust collection on this only measures 1.5 inches. So I have this little rubber adapter that I use for my table saw. And essentially it has a taper on this end that you can fit it into your tool and cut it off and then pressure fit it into the tool. And it actually works really well for this tool as well. So I'm going to order me another one of these, but I can just pressure fit it into the dust port, and then I can attach my 2.5-inch hose to that. In addition to the drum sander, I'll put a link to this fitting that works really well for it. I know that the length of a power cord for a tool is not a deal breaker because we have extension cords, but this tool does have a 6.5 foot power cord. So where the spindle sander really earns its keep in your shop is for sanding those inner curves on a board. And for today's test, I have a piece of oak and I have a piece of poplar that I just cut a inner curve on the bandsaw. So most of us don't have the skills to cut a perfect inner curve on a board using the bandsaw. So that's where this tool really comes in handy. You can probably see in the video where you got all of these imperfections from the bandsaw blade. So now we can use the spindle sander to really smooth that up. So this is the first time that I've used the tool. So I've got my dust collection hooked up, I've got my dust mask ready, and I've got my glasses on. So let's go ahead and try it out. So one of the things that I want out of a spindle sander is for the cast iron table of the tool to be 90 degrees to the spindle itself. So I'm happy to say that the sanding surface we just did is in fact 90 degrees to the face of the board. I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see in the video, but the cast iron tabletop is quite flat when I use my straight edge to test it. I can see only a very small amount of light coming underneath, sort of in the center of the cast iron table. I'm sure it's going to be hard for you to see in the video, but after sanding those two inner curves, there's very little sawdust on the table, on the cast iron table. So I think the dust collection is working really well. So sometimes after sanding operations here in my shop, it's sort of a cloud of dust, and I don't see that right now. Did you catch the metaphor of the thumbnail? I'm holding the magnifying glass as if we're focusing in on the tool. Okay, so enough of thumbnail discussions. So what do I like about this tool? Well, I do like it's got a small footprint. I like that it's not real heavy, it's not too hard to move around. I'm able to get my dust collection hooked to it. It would be nice to have a 4-inch hose connected to it, but the 2-inch or 2.5-inch hose will be okay. I like the fact that there's plenty of storage on the device to hold all of the parts and pieces that you need. The only thing it doesn't have is enough storage to hold some of the small washers, depending on the type of spindle or drum you're using. If you notice that the cast iron tabletop isn't real smooth and shiny, it's because it's got some kind of coating on it. And it says to use kerosene to remove that. I don't have any kerosene on hand. The instruction booklet specifically says not to use paint or lacquer thinner to remove that film. So the spindle sander is going to be a really nice complement to the belt and disc sander that we reviewed recently. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll send you there now. Also, if you're not in the market for a spindle sander right now and you want to use your drill press for one, I'll put a link here to a video I made where I showed you how to do a makeshift spindle sander with your drill press. That's a very economical option for doing some of the similar functions that this tool will do. So I don't know a lot about this tool brand, WEN. If you guys know something about it, put it in the description so we can all learn. So far, I'm really happy with the tool. I think it's a good value, and I think it's going to serve its purpose in my shop just fine. So I know so far I've got a very limited use of the tool. However, so far I do agree with all those positive comments online in terms of reviews for this tool.